Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to begin with our first panel discussion, which is on the topic of setting the agenda for 2020.
Without any further ado, let me turn to Dr. Adya first and ask him about the perspective that he can offer us with respect to the role of the government, because the question really at this stage is the government is receding from a whole lot of sectors, including some social sectors, and ceding space to the private sector. But as we have seen in the last 10, 20 years, the role of the government cannot be completely done away with, and especially in a sensitive subject like education, and especially the role of state governments. Tell us what you think in terms of the long term is the role of the government in this sector.
To my mind, government cannot get away from its role in the sector of education. Government is still the largest player in education sector. If you are really asking me what should be the strategy of government in the next 10 years in education, I would say that we have to focus on two things. One is improving the quality of education, right from primary education till technical education, the entire spectrum. And the second is bringing in the measure of inclusion, because at a time when a lot of privatization of higher education is taking place, unless we take into account the needs of the poor sections of the society, and unless we make arrangements for them also to access high quality, good education in form of some scholarships or in form of some loans, etc., I think we'll be really doing injustice to the youth of this country.
Let me now turn to Professor Aslam as somebody who runs what is clearly the largest distance learning effort of its kind in the world probably, for his perspectives about the role of distance learning and how that can actually further in reaching education to those areas where facilities are not available.
How can we democratize education? How it can reach everywhere? There are millions of people across the country who cannot think of a higher learning institution. Can we reach them at their doorsteps? We have to provide an alternate system of education, maybe based on the extensive use of the technology which is now in place. We have made dent, and we should feel proud about it. IGNOU is now operating in 43 countries of the world, apart from having a large network of more than 3,000 study centers across the country. But all this needs to be strengthened. I think we have to join hands, not only with the conventional system, but all other national level educational interventions which are being made, be it National Open School, be it National Skill Development Corporation or Commission. We have to join hands together. Then only we can be able to take India forward.
Let me go to Tushar Pandey and get his perspective on the issue of PPPs and whether the adequate models are existing, including that of funding, because clearly all the infrastructure that you create has to also be sustainable in terms of a business going forward.
Public-private partnership is an encompassation of technical matters, the engineers, the legal people, the consultants, rolled out into a contract where actually the project gets executed. It simply does not mean that there is somebody in the private sector and somebody in the government sector and things magically will happen. What we have not invested, and education is one of those sectors, is to adapt PPP in a socially relevant context on those sectors which have got social ramifications. Education is one of them. Get this PPP dimension into place. One, funding elements will get covered. Number two, the professionalism of the private industry will collaborate both with the central and the state governments. Business is there in all the states.
Let me now go to Dr. Chona. Do you think that these pressures that are being put and the new demands, they will impact quality? And what needs to be done both in the private as well as the government sector to ensure that quality continues to grow of the kind that we have managed to provide in some institutions so far?
Number of schools are not increasing with the demand. Therefore, the quality is going down. So quantity may be the strength, but quality is the weakness. The opportunities are huge, and I'm sure whoever is starting a school wishes to continue running that school, whether he's running at a loss or at failure. But the fact is that children give you that strength to carry on into the field of education. And so when you're looking at the threats are that you're going to be having educable but unemployable, okay? Schoolers with no proper schooling, schools without proper requirements, ICT without electricity. So when we look at this whole scene, I think it's very, very scary. We need to put all our heads and hands together, all the experts sitting here. We attend lots of conferences, but I'm sure, Siddharth, if out of this conference, we can measure the outcomes through each one of us, because after all, conferences must lead to action.
Globoramus is a focused IT service management company focused on serving Indian education sector. For the last 4 or 5 years, we work with many education solution providers, training and education content providers, working with schools, colleges, training centers across India, helping them to really focus on their core business, which is really delivering education content.
Wipro, in higher education, we have started Mission 10X as a not-for-profit trust, and we have been working with the engineering institutions across the country in this process of innovation, so that the students are able to come out with better employability skills as part of this program. So we work with teachers in bringing Mission 10X learning approach so that they make classes interesting for engineering students, and students are able to actually learn much more than what currently they are learning in their engineering classrooms.